I'm often asked by coaches, what can I expect if I come to one of your programs? So there's three main shifts that I see in coaches who come to our programs that I have found is most important to them. One shift is that they learn to trust the human process of change and not get so caught up in worrying about how they're coaching, but focus their attention on what's happening in the room, in the field, right in front of them as it relates to what the person is trying to accomplish and the change they're trying to make for themselves. The second shift that I observe, and I think is really important, is that, again, we're trying to model for clients what we're asking them to do for themselves. And one of the most important things is to access their whole self. So oftentimes when people come into coaching, they're telling us their stories in their head, blah, 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 blah. And part of our job is to drop down into our whole body as we're listening. Like, how do I feel about what I'm hearing? What gut reactions am I having? And so we do a lot of things in our programs to teach coaches how to access their whole self as they're listening and working with their clients, in hopes that they can then do the same for themselves. And so that shift is, again, out of their heads, out of their need to try to figure things out or understand, into their whole body, which can experience much more of the conversation. And we find that when coaches let go and can do this, not only do they discern more in themselves, but they actually start to notice a lot more about what's actually happening with the client. And so oftentimes I'm asked, can you teach me how to notice people this way? And I said, yes, if you have 30 years and all my background, you could. But in reality, we know how to do this instinctively. It's why we choose friends. It's why we walk away from some people and move towards others. So we help people just notice this in themselves so they can make finer distinctions about what they're picking up in their clients. And the third thing, which again is really hard for most coaches, because we have this fantasy that we're paid for what we say, right? And the way I help them let go of this is I ask them to think about people that have meant the most to them over the course of their life. Like, what were significant moments in your life that you'll remember to the end of time? And I ask them to think of those moments, and I said, and what did the person say in those moments? And most of them can't remember. I said, but you can remember how you felt, right? Those major encounters we have that change our life come because people show up to us. They see us in a way that perhaps no one has ever before. Like if you're in a relationship that's really satisfying and meaningful to you, you remember the first time that person looked at you that way. You'll never forget that look in their eyes, the love they felt for you, right? So we want to do that same thing in a platonic way with our clients. And the two things that we want to give our coaches the experience of, which is how to use silence as a generative energy. Silence is not what we do when we stop talking. Silence is the whole container that we have in coaching. It's actually more generative in many ways than what we say. So being able to use silence to drive the conversation, not our talking, is the first shift we make. And the second shift we ask our coaches to make, as with the story of people that have changed our lives, is it is your radical presence with the other human being that will have more healing impact on them than most anything you could ever tell them. And so we want our coaches to relax and say, how can I remain so present to this person, regardless of what they're saying, regardless of what they're doing, that they can feel this in their bones. Again, this is why the attachment work is so important. We're almost in some ways reparenting them. You can be really angry and I stay right here with you and love you anyways as my client. You can weep and I will be with you as you weep, as you face maybe a significant loss in your life. You can have extraordinary joy and I will celebrate with you. I will stay present to your joy. And so a lot of what we do with our coaches is we help them build up what's called a window of tolerance. I can be with bigger feelings. I can be with bigger statements. I can be with bigger energies or smaller energies. And I can hold that space regardless of what shows up for my client. And for me to be able to do that as a coach and for coaches to be able to do that for themselves, that's all about developing themselves. It's not about their technique. It's not about their tools or their methodology. It's about them as a human being. Can I hold the space for this person to do the work they need to do in this particular coaching session right now?